Monday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock, time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you had a great weekend. We're talking Browns to begin things. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi thinks more and more signs are pointing towards the Browns signing Kirk Cousins as one of those veteran quarterbacks.
Two major reasons. He's going to be one of the cheapest quarterbacks because after the Falcons cut him, he'll play for the NFL minimum because the Falcons are already guaranteeing him $25 million. If they don't exercise, if they don't release him by May 17th, it guarantees another $10 million on their books. So they don't want that to happen. So they're not going to trade him. Nobody would trade for that contract. Number two reason is we know he was together with Kevin Stefanski for 2 years in Minnesota.
Yeah.
He played in the Kyle Shanahan offense in Washington. He if he's healthy, he's a logical step in.
And again, he did not play in that style of offense in Atlanta last year and was overcoming some nagging injuries in addition to the Achilles injury that he came back from. Former NFL GM Mike Mayock was the GM of the Raiders. Talked about what he sees with Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, relative to the rest of the quarterback classes and last year's quarterback class.
I don't think you can put them in the top four from last year. I thought Bo Nix might be an interesting comparison for Shedeur. I think both of them are going to have to go to a place that's a good fit for them. Realistically, Rich, you can go back over the last 20 years and look at the NFL draft in the first round at quarterbacks, and at best it's a 50-50 proposition, and most of it's because kids get pushed up higher than they should go, and there's a bad fit, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why Bo Nix was so interesting to me last year. I don't think I gave him enough love last year. He was a better quarterback than I thought he was, but most importantly, he went to a coach and a system that was a really good fit for him. They surrounded him. They put an infrastructure around him, not unlike Minnesota did with the USC retread this year. Thought Kevin did a great job supporting that situation. So for me, I think quarterbacks probably go too early most of the time, but most importantly, it's about the infrastructure and the fit.
And Browns fans know too often Browns haven't had a good fit. So we'll see how that plays out. Emory Hunt of The Athletic, with his thought on the top quarterback in this upcoming draft class.
Listen, Shedeur and Ross has been my QB1 for this particular class for quite some time. And it's not to say Cam Ward isn't right there nipping at his heels. Graded out as 1B, in my opinion. A similar situation I had with the class with Richardson, Stroud, and Bryce Young. You can't go wrong with either Shedeur or Cam. But for Shedeur, I just like how consistent he's been in playing the position in terms of from the time we first saw him at Jackson State to where we last saw him at Colorado. Touch timing, anticipation, situational football has been excellent. I was impressed with how well he was playing as a true freshman. He was playing senior level football from the neck up, and it just really blew me away at how consistent he was with the decisions that he was making, more so than the physical talents. And then as he continued to get more talented physically, talk about his armor got a little bit stronger. He started to be a little bit more cognizant of when and where to take off and run and utilize some of his athletic skills that he has to buy time or to pick up that cheap first down. Shedeur Sanders aces situational football and playing the quarterback position how you kind of want it to be played.
Again, talking about Shedeur Sanders as his QB1, we'll see how that plays out relative to the Browns. This coming out of Cincinnati today, the Bengals plan to use the franchise tag on T. Higgins again this year. Here's what it means for a long-term deal, when it could happen, other details coming out about the wide receiver. So normally, you can do it a couple of times. The money goes up, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with T. Higgins. Again, the Bengals plan to franchise tag him again. They also have to work out a long-term deal with Jamar Chase. So Bengals and wide receivers trying to work through it. Seahawks are expected to part ways with Tyler Lockett. That would save them $17 million in cap space. A little bit of an older guy, but again, if you're looking for a wide receiver, Lockett has had some success, so it'll be interesting to see, is he on the Browns' radar? We told you last week that Shane Bieber was getting ready to throw off a mound for the first time in his rehab process. Happened over the weekend. 15 pitches in total. He threw in the 86 to 89 mile an hour range, which is pretty good for a first time coming out. Still a ways to go, but absolutely a good start as Shane Bieber throwing off the mound for the first time since April when he underwent Tommy John surgery. So he's kind of working his way back. We'll see how he progresses and when he might be ready to go. The Guardians also have come to agreement in terms with John Means for a contract this year, 2025 club option, 2026. Does still have to take his physical. He's another guy that's recovering from Tommy John surgery. He underwent it in June. So they're thinking he may, again, key point, may be able to pitch in games in August. But again, they have that club option for 2026. John Means was a pretty good pitcher with the Orioles. If he can come back, just an intriguing starting pitching. And again, if the Guardians are in it and he comes back in August, that's a guy that's gotten major league hitters out at a pretty high level. So again, not going to do much of anything relative to being able to pitch in games until August. But if John Means gets healthy, he's a guy that can get major league hitters out. Catcher Austin Hedges back with the Guardians. Hedges was on Rangers team that won it all a couple of years ago. He wanted to come back with the Guardians after being just 3 games away from going to the World Series last year. Of course, made it to the American League Championship Series, only won 1 game against the Yankees. But he wanted to be back with the Guardians.
You know, it's tough, man. It's when you can smell it, it's close. You know, especially experiencing what it's like to win the whole thing. It's all you want. It's the only thing that matters. You know, it's the only thing that matters for anybody, but like you get a little taste of it and you just want more. So knowing how close we were, you know, definitely took a little while to get over, but then there's just so much to learn from. And one of the reasons I wanted to come back in the first place was I knew we were going to be in an even better position this year to, you know, three wins away from World Series. You know, and that's the difference that it takes. And I'm excited to make those adjustments with the boys and ultimately go win the whole thing. In 22, we had a lot of the same guys, but they went to the ALDS. Now we got guys that went to the ALCS. Like they got a taste of what it's like to be so close. You know, there's not much more of a hostile environment than playing in Yankee Stadium or playing the Yankees. So going into the year, now everybody's proven to themselves how good they are and how good this group is. And I think this year it's going to be less talking about it and more just pure belief that this is the group that can go do it.
Austin Hedges talking about an excitement he has with the Guardians, and the Guardians they have added pieces to the bullpen. They've got 8 to 10 guys that have started and had some success, so it'll be interesting to see. Offense still needs some work without question. Cavs and the rest of the NBA finished up the All-Star game, couple days off before they get at it. Former Cavs and NBA big man Kendrick Perkins on if the Cavs are legitimate contenders this year.
Hell yeah, they contenders. Look, the Cavs could actually win it all. They have everything. They check all the boxes. They have a dynamic backcourt with Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Evan Mobley is playing great basketball right now under Kenny Atkinson. And the best thing they went out and done, what I've been saying all season long, is they had to address the wing position, the most important position in the NBA. And at the trade deadline, they went out and got DeAndre Hunter from the Atlanta Hawks, a great guy with size, athleticism, that could play both ends of the floor, that's 6'8", 6'9", and very versatile. They addressed the wing position, which they needed to do in order to compete with the Boston Celtics.
Kendrick Perkins says the Cavs are legit contenders, so we'll see. Again, well over the halfway point, about 30 games left in the regular season for them to figure out exactly how they want to use DeAndre Hunter and get healthy. WNBA's next expansion franchise, it will be awarded to Cleveland. The ownership group paying a league record $250 million expansion fee to bring back the Cleveland Rockers brand. Team's first season will be in 2028. So the WNBA is headed back to Cleveland, and they will be called the Cleveland Rockers once again. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. We are talking Browns and draft. Sports for CLE. Be right back. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. Sports for CLE continues. We turn our attention to the Browns. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave Frank from Cleveland. I got a quick thing for you. I got a trade for you. Myles Garrett to the Lions for 2 first-rounders and the running back Montgomery and Hendon Hooker, the backup quarterback. Because their first-round picks are basically going to be like second-round picks. So what do you think about that, Dave? Give me your thoughts. I love you, brother. You and the family be good, be safe. God bless you. And I'll be in touch soon.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. I love the idea. I agree you want to get more than late first-round picks if you're going to trade Myles Garrett. Not so sure they're going to part with David Montgomery if you're the Lions, though.
Yeah, and, not necessarily is it an issue maybe with Montgomery, but he's been in the league for a while. Ideally, if you're the Browns, you're looking at a loaded running back class. That's maybe where a draft pick, other than maybe a first-round pick. I mean, it could even possibly be maybe a Lions pick that you could use on a running back, maybe a little earlier for me than I would want to do because this class is so deep. But I do agree that, maybe looking at, a player or two in these deals to offset the fact that if he does, in fact, want to go to a contender and that's the way it works out, it's certainly not the most advantageous situation for Cleveland. So therefore, yes, I am going to look at your quarterback room. I am probably going to look at other positions, maybe wide receiver, maybe tight end, certainly, positions on the defense, if this is the way, if it does go down and at all, and if it does go down the way Myles wants it to go down, you have to understand that, the value of a first-round pick you're going to get from a team that's supposed to be contending for a Super Bowl is not going to be that great. So, yeah, there's going to have to be other ways to maneuver that. I'm not sure how close we are to even getting to actually talking about potential deals for Myles, and, we'll see where this goes down the road. But also if you're Detroit, you're trying to hopefully get, maybe the final piece you need, but also not give up some integral parts along the way as well.
This is kind of interesting. So this is the number of scouts that are on each staff in the division. In the AFC North, the Browns have 26 scouting department in personnel. Steelers with 18, Ravens with 11, the Bengals just 4. That surprised me that the Browns have that many.
It's too much. It is just too much, Dave. The problem is you try to have this and you have guys divided up and who's covering which areas, which schools, da-da-da-da-da. But ultimately, you're all going to work in unison to try to find the most consensus board you can put together. If you've got 26 people in the room, I mean, how in the world are you going to get to something that is consensus? I'm not saying Cincinnati's way of only 4 is the right way. And the funny thing is if you look at this and who's been the most consistent probably for quite a while now, the Baltimore Ravens with 11, which maybe, if you're dividing the country, not just one guy can handle the Southeast, obviously. Not just one guy can handle the Midwest. Not just one guy can handle the West Coast. So that's kind of how you get to a number of probably somewhere, over 10, the way the Ravens have it done. But for the Browns, that just seems like a really, really large number. And my other thing is what did you need 26 scouts for? The moment you made the Deshaun Watson pick, you knew you didn't have a first-round pick for 3 years. What in the world were these guys doing? I mean, oh, hey, I caught a great D3 game the other night. No, there was nobody of interest whatsoever, but, or we not, we didn't go to see, any LSU games. We didn't go to see USC play because we didn't have a first-round pick. We had no interest in seeing Caleb Williams. I mean, that's one where, you really look down and you shake your head because – I don't care about the money, but, what exactly were you paying all 26 guys to do when you were essentially only drafting on day 3 anyway?
All right, this one's interesting as well. So this is when the Browns had a top 10 pick and selected a quarterback later. 2017, DeShone Kizer at 52. 2016, Cody Kessler at 93. 14, Manziel at 22. 12, Whedon at 22, Colt McCoy in 2010 at 85, Brady Quinn in 07, 22, Charlie Fry, 05, 67, Luke McCown in 04, 106, Spurgeon Wynn, a couple of picks ahead of Tom Brady, I might add, in 2000. Combined record of those quarterbacks is 22-96. And then we update this, and here's a list of first-round quarterbacks that the Browns passed on. Mahomes, Watson, the first time. Wentz, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger. Jeff, you go back to that list, and you would think by accident you'd get one of them out of that 10 or 11 right.
Well, I think also a lot of that has to do with kind of having a lot of other things in place, too. And, they were just basically, a boat out at sea. There was no direction. They stayed afloat miraculously. They just, it was, look, we know how poor this franchise has been since the return. And I think that's probably why you have so much part of this fan base as aggravated now as they are, because they finally started to get a little taste of success in 20. A little bit of success in 23. And, I don't think it's gotten to the point where, they just, hey, we want our diamonds in gold every day. But I also don't think that they want to feel like, hey, we're in it. We have a real chance to compete we're drafting number 2 overall again. Everybody just wants to find, some sort of drive towards consistency. And that's certainly going to come down to whether or not they can find the guy to be the quarterback. And, with this year, it'll be 3, if not 4 guys brought in. And, I think everybody's just kind of praying a novena every night, just saying, I don't care which one of the 4. Just, God, please let one of them be a guy we could buckle up and, sit down and watch for a couple of seasons.
Well, the flip side of that is, and this is kind of the crowd that always wants to fire the GM and the head coach.
Sure.
The reason you can't find a quarterback is you're constantly changing philosophies and systems, both in the front office and with the coach. That's why, was I happy with 3-14? Not even a little. But if you're constantly changing, it's a vicious cycle, and they've been in this cycle since 99.
Well, usually what is one of the biggest mistakes people make with their rookie quarterback? He goes in, he plays, he struggles, they clean house. And then guess what? Basically, your rookie quarterback comes back for year 2, and it's basically a rookie year all over again, which, doesn't do him any good. And now all of a sudden you start to get to that difficult spot. A year later, well, now we got to make a decision. Are we, we giving him a 5th-year option? Or, is this the guy? Or are we doing this all over again? And that's how you get some of these teams And you get some of these flame outs and burnouts like you do, the Zach Wilsons of the world, the Sam Darnolds of the world. And, very few find the success a second or third time the way Sam Darnold did in another city. It's the most demanding and important position in all of professional sports. And, sometimes the thirst for it and, the grade and the belief of whether or not he is the guy, basically they say, we don't know, but we've got to take this shot. And, when you make a desperate decision, it usually, does not work out in the best realm. It's very rare where you get a really good team that just finds bad luck to get into a position early to draft a quarterback. It's the way it goes. And obviously patience in the NFL is just something that does not exist in any way whatsoever.
Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE will be right back.
Are you ready? The Ohio Lottery is about to unleash 50 new millionaires on Ohio. Want a chance to become one? Play VIP Millions. With 50 $1 million winning tickets, it's your best chance to win $1 million ever.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Just want us to make up our minds as to what the quarterback is that we need, and whether we draft one early or in the middle, or whatever we can get in free agency, whether it's Joe Flacco or Kirk Cousins. Let's just do the right thing. I really have a feeling that everybody's so down on us, but I have a funny feeling that we're going to rebound really strong this particular year, and this is going to be the right first step in the new direction of the Browns going forward. No more screwed up mistakes, no more bad decisions. Okay, well, that's my wish, that's my hope, and that's my feeling.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, at some point in time, they got to get it right. Relative to the quarterback, yes, you got to bring in probably a couple of veterans. Yes, you got to draft at least one, maybe one earlier and one later. You have to get the numbers so that you eventually get a quarterback that you're happy with.
Well, we're just going to start here with the Joe Flacco stuff. Look, this was a fantastic May to September fling. Let's all just leave it exactly where it was, okay? Joe Flacco will forever be revered in Cleveland. We will always love that run. And, man, the former Raven guy came here and look what happened. No, we're not doing that again. But, yes, 2 veterans probably makes a hell of a lot of sense. It's a really shallow class, so drafting 2 may not be that easy, but I wouldn't disagree with it. With all of those picks you have on day 3 and realizing that there's a good chance, probably they don't make all 12, but if they do, you take a quarterback there, and then, hey, the second veteran maybe battles the second rookie, and maybe, in true Andrew Berry fashion, I'll just swap one of them when it gets down to roster cut down and see if that works out whatsoever. You want to get them all in there because everybody's going to need work. All the position groups are going to need work. If it is a guy like Kirk Cousins who comes here, we're not sure that Kirk Cousins is going to be a guy that's going to be out there every single practice. And, you just want to be able to get the best work in you possibly can for everybody else as well. And it's not just the quarterbacks. And again, I don't care if you throw 57 darts, to find just one guy. If that's what it's going to take, then by all means, go ahead and do it. And there is the realization, of course, Dave, that, we know that this is not the greatest time. It is certainly not the quarterback market right now is very similar to the housing market. It is not the best time to be a buyer, so to speak. But, this is where the Browns are. And to be honest with you, for as bad as the Deshaun Watson situation went, I think they're more than okay, being, a buyer in a poor quarterback market.
Yeah, I know you've addressed this on Browns 3D. There's going to be competition. I mean, there are going to be teams that do not like the rookie class that are going to look to get a guy that's done it at least at some level in the NFL.
Well, but first off, you look at a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Here's a perennial playoff team every single year. And, if you're one of these guys who's out there, and yes, maybe Tennessee's calling, obviously Cleveland could be calling, New York could be calling, and you're looking at that, but you're saying, well, there's a team that's, always goes to the playoffs. Defense looks pretty good. I go there. Maybe I'm the difference for them, not just getting to the playoffs, but advancing in the playoffs. The Browns should have, a money factor, and they should be able to put themselves in a position where maybe essentially money is not a factor if they truly feel there is a free agent guy out there that 100% fits their needs. Yes. But in the same respect, though, there is a team like Pittsburgh who says, well, I think we offer you a better situation. But I also do agree with, from what, basically the caller in the message left is I still think this team is a lot closer to a 500 team, even last year, than it is to a 3-loss team. I think they just kind of got, I'm not saying, anybody tanks, it's a lovely, lovely phrase, but not very many people actually try and practice it. But I don't think the Browns were that upset that they were so banged up that, they weren't really going to be able to win any games going down the stretch. Again, everything worked out beautifully for them. They got their escape hatch out of the terribleness of the Deshaun Watson move, money, contract, all of that. The only problem is the market just doesn't coincide with what the Browns kind of have going on right now.
So a guy who is gaining momentum is at QB3 in the draft, and a lot of people feel is kind of moving up towards the back half or middle of the first round is Jackson Dart. Todd McShay, formerly ESPN, now The Ringer, draft analyst, talking about how Jackson Dart reminds him of Drake May, the rookie last year with the Patriots.
It's very similar tape in terms of trying to be decisive, trying to keep things moving, progressing north, right? Efficient as a passer, right? Even though like the production numbers and the stats wouldn't say it, but like throws are there. The difference was Drake May, the ball popped off his hands a little bit more than it pops off of Jackson. Jackson's got a 2. We do
100%.
one out of 5. Drake was a 1 in terms of 1 being elite, top end, highest level, outstanding. 2 being, and we only do these for position specific traits, for critical traits. 2 being good, 3 being average, 4 being below average, 5 being marginal. Okay. So I think Jackson is a 2 in terms of his arm strength. Drake May is a 1. With Drake May, the athleticism, I think they're same, like the speed and what they do. I really do. But it's just different when I popped in the Drake May tape because I'm watching a guy who's 6'4", 223 pounds versus 6'0", Jackson Dart was 6'1", 7/8 of an inch. So we'll call him 6'2" and 226 pounds.
Right.
So to watch a taller guy with the same agility, maybe honest to God, like slightly better, is really impressive.
And that makes a big difference. 6'5" versus somebody who's under 6'1" in the NFL. That is a concern.
Well, certainly, and it's muscle capacity, it's build, it's, the amount of hits you can take. I think Jackson Dart, this is probably a really good situation for him. If he were to go out next year, and again, next year, I mean, you look in just the size and shape of these guys and the arm strength, these guys are all, probably going to be legit a lot of ball to play before we get to that time or whatever. But, Jackson Dart, I do not believe there's a world, because you talk to so many people and so many people feel that this draft is maybe 14, 15 guys that actually carry first round grades. So, and everybody kind of says that, well, but that 25 to 60 spot, there's some really, really, really good ball players. So if you're a team, who's drafting 28th, 29th, 30th, and says, well, basically the next 15 guys on the board here for me all carry the same grade. But there's maybe Cleveland, there's maybe New York, who say didn't get their guy in round 1 and say, you know, and I know what? Not getting our guy at 2 or 3 was maybe too rich for our blood. But rolling the dice on Jackson Dart at 29, 30, 31, 32 maybe is a little bit easier for us to swallow. Also, it doesn't put as much pressure, on the kid. It doesn't put as much pressure on us. And, you know, whatever he plays, he plays. And then if we're still not that competitive, we can go ahead and, you know, fight in next year's draft class, similar to what the Cardinals did, you know, a few years back when it was, you know, Kyler Murray. And, you know, at the time they still had Josh Rosen, but it's kind of similar to how that worked out. So I think Jackson Dart's going to go in round 1 because you're going to get somebody that's going to be willing to trade up. And I think some of those teams sitting there late in round 1 realize and will smartly say, we'll just drop down because we're going to get the same caliber of player, but somebody wants this quarterback that bad, so let's get them go get him.
This also from The Athletic. Potential salary cap cuts for every NFL team for the Browns. They say edge rusher Obo Okunrankwo. Browns face series of important salary cap related decisions. Could save $3 million by designating Okunrankwo as a post June 1st cut, age 30 age. Yeah, you know what? It's intriguing. If Myles Garrett isn't here, it probably negates the likelihood that he becomes a cap casualty, being Okunrankwo.
Well, the first thing I think is, you know, look, the Browns seem to be, you know, if it's not quarterback that high, it is chasing, you know, probably, in my opinion, the best best player in this draft in Abdul Carter. Or, you know, there's certainly the possibility of looking at pass rushers in the edge class. But also the reality and the fact of the matter in this situation is Alex Wright will be coming back as the final year of his contract. The Cleveland Browns obviously want to give Alex Wright a good opportunity to prove what his worth is, either to them or to the rest of the NFL. And the other one is Elijah McGuire has passed by Ogbenaya Okoronkwo. So it's to the point, and, you know, it always gets weird, you know, for some people to understand and believe this. It's not that maybe Ogbenaya Okoronkwo doesn't have worth. It's just that, you know, for him to be the 4th or 5th defensive end for the Cleveland Browns, when he could possibly go somewhere else and maybe be the 3rd or 4th, which means, you know, a defined amount of reps. It's a positional group that the Browns, with Alex Wright coming back healthy, with the emergency of McGuire, you know, Garrett obviously is the key to all of this if he stays, and the potential, because there are a lot of good pass rushers in this class, and the Browns probably do add one. It just puts Ogbo in a tough spot. And, you know, if you're a good general manager, you basically, you know, you want to go do well on a veteran because, you know, that's how you get these guys to commit to you as role players when they come up for free agency.
Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Now continue talking Browns. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Well, guys, our owner's doing it again. He's laying out plans to build his new stadium. Why doesn't he lay out a plan to help his football team win? But, again, we're used to it by now. He don't give a crud about his football team. All he cares about is lying in his pocket and building himself a new stadium. Meanwhile, this football team's the laughing stock of the league. Take care, guys.
Well, again, you can say a lot of things, but I wouldn't question Jimmy Haslam's willingness to spend money and try to improve the team. Now, wisdom you can question, but this is spending in 2023. And you see the Browns, they spent more money by a pretty large section. Now, that takes into account, you know, the buying people out, paying. Those are actual dollars spent. They spent more money than anybody. Last year, 2024, only the 49ers spent more money on football, trying to bring a winning team. So, Jeff, there's a section of the fan base that doesn't like Jimmy Haslam. That's their prerogative. Don't question whether he's willing to spend money. I mean, this guy spends more money than anybody on players, on the roster. So, I get people are aggravated, but questioning his ability and willingness to spend money, that just isn't true.
Jimmy, how are you? It's Andrew Barry. Would you be willing to commit $231 million guaranteed? Yeah, he's a pervert. Yeah, there's a lot of potential lawsuits. Yeah, that's that guy. Yeah, that guy. Oh, you're willing to commit $230 million guaranteed to a guy that probably nobody wants within 300 miles of their home. You do not question Jimmy Haslam's desire to win. Does he know football? Does he know how to win? No. Do most owners? No. But even still, when these records look as bad as they do, and y'all should, I'll plug my guy, Jack Duffin, over at the OBR. When the Browns, and all of a sudden, and everybody says the Browns have no room. They have no salary cap space. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, the Browns have 70 million, 75 million. Go read Jack Duffin's work over at the OBR and basically see who's ultimately paying that money. Look, and that's the other thing. Jimmy does want to open this big, beautiful building. But for it to hit the way Jimmy really wants it to hit, the product's got to be good. It's not just so maybe Taylor Swift can come play a concert in November or December, or whatever favorite band, or to hold a King of the Ring wrestling tournament that takes place in February in a big. It would be having a brand name product as basically the main attraction of that building. And
there's nothing wrong with that. He should want the Taj Mahal of sport.
What owner in the NFL does it?
Right. So you can
winning creates more money. Losing doesn't make Jimmy Haslam any more money.
Right. And you can question a lot of things with Jimmy Haslam. Don't question his willingness to spend money to try to win. That's one thing you can't question.
I think Jimmy Haslam has a really good grasp of you can't take it with you. His family is taken care of from grandchildren's 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 grandchildren that he will never even know. And those young people are taken care of as well. Jimmy will spend on his product.
All right. Tony Grossi, longtime Browns beat reporter, talking about what he sees happening with the Browns in that number 2 overall pick.
I think there is an increasing scenario that Cam Ward could be available for the Browns at number 2. And that involves the Giants trading up to 1 with Tennessee and taking Shedeur. I think Shedeur is earmarked for the Giants. I think he knows it. His dad knows it. The Giants know it. And the question is whether they trade up to 2 or they trade up to 1. And if that's why it's in the best interest of the Browns to put on these airs that they love the kid, that he's in their plans and all that, and stare down the Giants and force them, in my opinion, to talk to you about just moving up 1 spot. And if they can't work it out, I think the Giants go up to number 1 if they're not already thinking that, because Tennessee is definitely going to trade out of that spot.
Yeah, I get it. Cam Ward's scared, and again, he could end up being great. The variance between Cam Ward's ceiling and floor, it's enormous.
My biggest question here is, why is Tennessee just going to walk out of 1? That's the part I don't get. You've now got a head coach who's going into year 2. Unless I see them sign, I don't want to say predominant because I don't know if we're going to label any of these free agent quarterbacks as predominant. But unless you show me that they signed the free agent quarterback where you would say, oh, all right, so maybe you want to hold out for Jackson Dart a little later. I mean, on paper, what really is the difference between Tennessee, between Cleveland, between the Giants? So that would be my question. And I will tell you this, what I know, and from the Titans people that I trust the most, is if they stay, it's Cam. So if they stay and they take Cam, then, the Browns are either, I don't know what you're doing in that point, because basically, I don't think they want to go to 6. I think they still believe that the quarterbacks and Abdul Carter are the impact players here. So, then basically it's, you're not basically trying to hold the Giants hostage. It's, do we want Shedeur Sanders? Okay, then we will, obviously make the deal. I just don't understand why everybody just automatically assumes Tennessee, with now a brand new GM, after they hired a GM 2 years ago, then hired a head coach last year, then hired a new GM, is just going to, and look, maybe they don't believe in it. Maybe they don't believe in either guy. That's certainly possible. But, I mean, if you're Tennessee, how long are you going to sit around here? We're going to run Will Levis out there again? That's not going to happen. So unless Tennessee signs a free agent quarterback, where everybody says, oh, okay. Other than that, I think Tennessee is probably going to take, whichever quarterback they feel most comfortable with. And again, Tennessee folks I talk with, they seem to feel that Cam Ward would be the guy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the front end of the draft will be really intriguing, and you kind of wish that the Browns weren't involved in it, but we are.
There we go. Draft day, baby.
As always, great stuff, Jeff Lloyd. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
You got it. All the best, Dave.
Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. He is the host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. We'll continue talking Browns. Damon Wolf from Dawgs by Nature straight ahead. Sports for CLE. He'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Are you ready? The Ohio Lottery is about to unleash 50 new millionaires on Ohio. Want a chance to become one? Play VIP Millions. With 50 $1 million winning tickets, it's your best chance to win $1 million ever.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports for CLE. Rich Eisen and Jason McCourty, former NFL defensive back, on their thoughts about what the Browns should do with Myles Garrett and that trade request.
If he's not going to be happy, if he's not going to be carrying the culture forward because he doesn't want to be there, you have to make a move and do something.
Yeah, and especially since you could probably get 2 ones. One this year, one next year. You could kind of replenish what you lost in the Deshaun Watson trade, even though that you've already kind of paid that whirlwind, right now. I mean, you've already done that, but you can get that back. And then I just don't know if you fall in love with a quarterback enough, you take that kid second overall and you start from scratch, which is why Myles wants out, is what it seems like to me,
Exactly. There's you don't see the end. And to your point, the Deshaun Watson failure, that was it. Like, that was the last ditch effort. And you kind of, I guess you can give him credit for swinging and seeing if it was going to work. But the fact that it hasn't, you don't have another opportunity. And for the Browns, you look at it as, if you don't have an opportunity to get there right now, get those first-round draft picks for Myles. Even if you don't get a quarterback right now, you start to build a really good roster of good players.
With that, let's welcome in Damon Wolf from Dawgs by Nature. Damon, I know you wrote an article kind of around this, a win-win situation for the Browns in the Myles Garrett situation. But the problem is 2 first-round picks are not all 2 first-round picks are not created equal. If they're closer to 28, 29 in the first round, those are like second-round picks.
Yeah, absolutely. You really have to take into consideration what team you're going to trade with if you are going to agree to a deal. And I don't think the Browns are interested in, giving away Myles to a team who's picking late in the first round and will be doing so for the foreseeable future once they acquire Garrett.
So again, you wrote an article, and so what would be a win-win trade scenario for Myles Garrett and the Browns? And you say 2 high-value first-round picks to guarantee the Browns multiple swings at getting a franchise quarterback, additional draft assets to acquire young talent to replace aging veterans, 1 or 2 players that the Browns could utilize in their scheme at minimum salaries, and the ability to strike creative deal to help eliminate some of the dead cap hits that would be created. And one of those will be from Myles Garrett. If he's traded before the draft, it's $36 million dead cap, which people have asked, what does dead cap mean? Well, look at it this way. It's $36 million you can't spend to improve your roster.
Right. It certainly handicaps the Browns a little bit. And that, that's trade scenario I laid out is a tall task. And somebody's going to have to really blow Andrew Berry in the front office away with an offer for Myles if they were to decide to take one. And that scenario that I laid out is kind of that being presented as a proposal.
And we'll take a look at one of these trade proposals that you had in the next segment. I know you've also done a roundtable with the Dawgs by Nature site that you write for. Browns offseason plan. Is it rebuild or reload? What do you think it is?
Well, we're of course waiting for the big dominoes to fall, and we won't unfortunately know until those start to happen. And when the league year opens in March, the first and foremost being what quarterback do they go out and sign in free agency? If they sign a capable veteran, or if they're really trying to take a swing at somebody to come in and be the starter for this year, you have to wonder how that impacts Myles' decision and whether or not he would reconsider his trade request. And then, of course, I think Joel Bitonio is probably waiting to see what's going on with the Myles Garrett situation before he makes his big decision. So those are some dominoes that we need to see at least one of them start to happen before we can make too many, make too many proclamations about what the Browns are going to do. But in that article in specific that you're talking about, I'm kind of in the middle of the road. I think that there's a possibility that you can trade Myles for future assets and, also still try to compete and be competitive over the next couple of years. I'm not suggesting that the Browns tank at all or try to go any of that. I would argue that the tank already happened last year, and we've went through that. So everything from here on out would be, an upswing and a retooling versus more of like a major rebuild.
Yeah. Tell me your thoughts on this. When you look at the Browns roster, there's a huge hole at quarterback. There has been. Deshaun Watson was not good. Jameis Winston wasn't the answer. But when I look at the roster from top to bottom, I see a 7, maybe 8-win team, 500, slightly under 500, as opposed to a 3-win. Am I Am I talking myself into that as somebody that follows the Browns way too closely?
No, Dave, I think your assessment is pretty fair and right on there. Just a year ago, they were an 11-win team with a similar roster, and I would argue that they added some talent to the roster in last year's draft. They brought in Mike Hall, among others, and I think that I definitely think they can still be in that neighborhood of 7 to 10 wins, competing for the playoffs. And of course, they are going to need to absolutely solve that quarterback position you were mentioning in order to go to the next level.
Yeah, and there's other issues as well, but everything looks a little better when you get competent quarterback play, and everything looks much worse when you get the type of quarterback play that the Browns had last season.
Yeah, absolutely. It magnifies it.
This is kind of interesting. So David Njoku is another guy that is young, and do they need to get a contract extension done with him? He's been really productive. He's only 28. He's been banged up and hurt a lot. When he's been on the field when he's been on the field with a competent quarterback, he's looked like an all-pro.
Yeah, Njoku certainly is a player you would like to keep around for the foreseeable future. I think that he will be 29 at some point during the season. 1 year left on his deal, but if they could find a way to, extend him maybe for like 2 more years, it just depends upon, what Njoku and his reps want. I think the sweet spot for Andrew Berry would be a kind of a 2-year extension where they kind of add some new money to his deal and, sweeten it a little bit. But he may want to, it may be his last shot at a big long-term contract.
Damon Wolf from Dawgs by Nature and I are going to step aside, take one more time. On the other side of the break, back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Plus, we'll talk about the mock Myles Garrett trade that we told you Damon could come up with. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. Full Court Action is a half-hour devoted exclusively to men's and women's basketball from across the Mid-American Conference. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave Bacon. Join me at 6:30 Tuesday nights, and we'll meet the coaches and players from the Mid-American Conference who are making an impact in basketball. Full Court Action will spotlight the top plays and performances from all across the Mid-American Conference, with some historical action as well. Catch Full Court Action Tuesday nights at 6:30 on Rock Entertainment Sports Network. We continue talking Browns with Damon Wolf from Dawgs by Nature. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, guys. The media is always talking about, Detroit should give up 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett. Philadelphia should give up 2 first-round picks for Myles Garrett. Like, your 2 late first-round picks are nowhere near the worth of Myles Garrett. And then the media will not even talk about the cap ramifications that come along with trading Myles Garrett. Be honest about the whole aspects of a Myles Garrett trade. But those are my thoughts, and hopefully we'll have a good offseason and put a better product on the field next year. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Damon, we did touch on that, and I agree with you 100%. If they're trading them to a playoff team, which Myles wants, you need some young veteran players at positions that make sense for the Browns, because those two picks are like second-round picks.
Yeah, you certainly need to get more back than 2 late first-round picks, in my opinion, if you're going to actually do it. And a team, would have to want to. And so rather than look at some of those, teams that are going to be competing deep into the playoffs and contending for the Super Bowl, like the Bills, the Lions, the Eagles, and those guys, I would look more toward, teams that are on an upswing. And in that trade proposal, I identified the Chicago Bears as a possible landing spot. They have got a new head coach that was the darling of the league the past couple of coaching hiring cycles. They have Caleb Williams, who's the #1 overall pick last year's draft, the promising quarterback in place. And they have some other pieces And I think that, you could also, Myles would probably be happy with going there, because he wouldn't be in a necessarily a worse off situation, and they would at least have the quarterback situation, potentially solved.
So here's the trade that you'd come up with. You have the Browns trading Myles Garrett, Greg Newsome, 2025 fourth-round pick, which would be the 103rd pick, and a sixth-round pick, which is 181 overall. Browns get a first-round pick this year, 10th overall, 26th first-round pick, this year's 41st overall pick, an offensive tackle, a young offensive tackle that they drafted last year, and then wide receiver Tyler Scott. So we'll get into the mock draft that you did in conjunction with this, but it gives you an early pick to get an impact player this year. You're still holding on to number 2. You did give up Greg Newsome, but that's, again, a guy that probably, if he survives this year, he's probably not coming back, just with everything the Browns have behind him relative to the Browns. He's on he was tagged, so they picked up the fifth-year option. So he is an expensive guy that hasn't performed to the level they're going to be paying him.
Yeah, that's really why it's almost like in this scenario and proposal, it would be like the Browns almost forcing the Bears to take Greg Newsome as part of the deal, so that way they could at least get his $13 million off the book to help negate the impact of the dead cap hit that they would absorb through trading Myles.
And the other thing is there's things that they can do with the contract. All right, let's look at, so now the Browns would pick 2, 10, 33, 41. So we'll look at what you had. You have Abdul Carter at 2, Will Campbell, the pick they got from the Bears, offensive tackle, at 10, Jackson Dart, Caleb Johnson. You got the tight end, Mason Taylor. You got a linebacker, and then Riley Leonard. So you get 2 young quarterbacks, kind of what I had said earlier in the show. But you've addressed it, a young tackle who can play, and you get Tyler Scott, a young, fast wide receiver. So there are some pieces there that you've added.
Yeah, I mean, this would kind of be, my ideal scenario of what it might look like. In the mock draft example that you just showed, Shedeur Sanders actually went first to Tennessee. So, I would consider Sanders at 2. But the way it worked out, I don't think you can really pass up on Abdul Carter in that situation with Sanders off the board. And for me, it just comes down to fit. I like Cam Ward as well, but I like him for 31 other teams probably more than for the Browns. And some of that might be a little PTSD from the Deshaun years, but yeah, they'd certainly have an opportunity, a plethora of draft capital already. And if they were to do that deal, they would have even more. And the example there was, I certainly wouldn't expect them to pick 12 players in the draft upcoming. I don't think they have that many roster spots, and they would parlay those into maybe perhaps trading up a little bit here or there, or moving those picks back to next year. But it just really goes to show you what they could add to the roster if they were to do something like that. And the idea of picking Riley Leonard, I'm not saying like let's have a quarterback competition or anything like that with Jackson Dart. I think Jackson Dart would be the perceived quarterback of the future. But Riley Leonard's a guy that you could, have as your third quarterback on the roster, let him develop, get a couple of off seasons in under the coaching staff, and see what you have down the road.
The other one that I would keep an eye on, similar to the Bears, would be the Patriots. That's a team that has figured out the quarterback position, currently in the 4th slot. I am sure that they are well aware of Myles Garrett because of their new head coach. He was here with the Browns for a little bit. So that would be another one that I would have more interest in trades like the Bears and the Patriots than the Eagles or the Lions.
Yeah, those would really be the 2 ideal landing spots, in my opinion. Also, not only does Vrabel have great familiarity with Garrett, but also Elliott Wolfe, who was here with the Browns, during the early days of Garrett being here under Dorsey, they would certainly have familiarity as well. So, I'm all for either one of those two teams.
Yeah, and again, I would take multiple first-round picks. You wouldn't have to, if you want to give me this first-round pick next year and the year after, that makes more sense to me than two late 20s picks.
Absolutely.
What roles, other than quarterback, what holes do you think need to be filled via free agency?
So I think they really need to try to address the number one, the offensive line. And, they may have to do some finagling with the cap there and lose a guy or two on the offensive line already. And depending on what Bitonio decides for his future, if he wants to come back or not. But they really need to focus on the trenches in free agency as much as possible. Offensive line, perhaps some on the defensive line as well. And then, of course, I think that they really need a good blocking tight end. Of course, running back is a position that they could use perhaps a free agent. Linebacker, depending on JOK's situation. And, possibly nickel corner or safety, depending on what they decide with Thornhill. But there are spots that they need to address some of and then decide what they want to do during the draft to address the rest.
Damon Wolf, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Damon.
No problem. Thanks, Dave.
Damon Wolf, make sure you check him out. Good stuff. Dawgs by Nature is where you can find him. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.